Some leaders leave footprints, others leave libraries. You're tuning into the Authors on Mission podcast, where industry giants become literacy legends. In every episode, we talk with authors who turn their brilliance into books that transform lives. I'm Danielle Hutchinson, your host and Chief Creative Officer at Authors on Mission. Welcome to your authorship experience. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Authors on Mission podcast, the podcast committed to diving deep into the insights and strategies of top experts used to achieve success while inspiring you to become an expert author yourself. Today, we're joined by transformational leadership expert and best-selling author, Jeremie Kubicek. Jeremie is the co-founder of Giant Worldwide and creator of the 5 Voices Assessment. His book, The 5 Voices, provides a powerful framework for self-awareness and influence. So get ready to unlock your leadership potential as we explore Jeremie's journey and wisdom. Whether you're an established leader or an aspiring influencer, this conversation will equip you with the tools to identify your leadership voice, appreciate the voices of those you heard, and multiply your impact through your teams. And of course, help you with the writing process as well. Without further ado, welcome to the show, Jeremie.
Good to be with you. Thanks for the opportunity.
Of course. We love having people on from all different genres, all different types of walks of life, and your path in particular is perfect for this show and for our listeners because as writers, we're all finding our voices. So I think this is going to be an amazing episode for everybody.
It's great. Yeah, it's super fun. I love to write. I love to talk about it. And so glad to help.
Yeah, awesome. Well, to begin with, I would love to learn a little bit more about yourself and what exactly led you to writing The 5 Voices.
So I've wanted to write since I was really young. And I always told myself, hey, by the time I'm 40 years old, I want to have a book. And this was back in my 20s and earlier than that even. I don't know why. I think I just liked the concept of it, but I didn't know the discipline of it. And so since then, I've written 7 books. I'm just finished my 7th one, working on an 8th. So the idea, though, of the 5 voices, it came from us observing and watching people misuse or understand personality. So my business partner, Steve Cockrum, he had this idea on how to simplify the Big 5 and Myers-Briggs and make it simpler for people to understand, because a lot of times people don't understand psychometrics, they don't understand personality. So we made it simple enough for a 13-year-old to get. And that's really the goal of the 5 Voices. And it began to spread and scale inside the British Foreign Office, inside Pfizer, inside Google and the US Air Force. And it was just one of those where it just seemed to scale because it was simple, it was scalable, and it was sustainable. And that's why we wrote it.
Well, first off, thank you so much for that amazing introduction there. It gives us a good idea for where everything came from. And the thing that I love the most is that you made it simple enough for a 13-year-old to understand. I think that's something really important in this industry because so many people dive into their books and it's filled with jargon and it's important stuff that we're mentioning, but some people just want to read a book and they want to just understand the concepts. At the end of the day, that's what is most important. So I guess I'm curious to know, what was that process like, having to kind of take the material and write it in a way that's simple for everybody to understand?
I mean, it's like, what's it like to be on the other side of you, right? So it's what's it like to be on the other side of your book? How readable is it? And what I found is, and by the way, I've been in the publishing space for years. I used to own John Maxwell's assets. I used to work with a lot of other leadership authors. So I've watched all of these books and John did a really good job of simplifying it, making it simple. But what I found is a lot of writers are writing to show themselves credible and prove themselves. So they feel like they should be listing and sourcing constantly. In fact, there's this one author, I won't say his name. I like his books, but I can't read them so I put him in AI, summarize this for me, because he's so constantly talking about other sources. And I want to go, well, what do you think? Just tell me, just explain it. So that's what we've done. We've okay, look, we've sourced this. We've done a lot of work. We set it up in the premise, but we want to make it so reader friendly that it just flows and people just experience it of that's exactly what I was thinking, or that connected so much. So it's how readable is your book? And I think, again, people feeling like they should source it to prove themselves credible to a few critics or the end user. So who is your avatar? Who's reading the book? How readable is it?
Thank you for that. I think it's really cool that you mentioned like who is your avatar, right? That's a great way to picture it, especially for somebody maybe just getting started writing. Like it's a good way to put yourself into the reader's shoes. So definitely something important there. So let's dive in a little bit about the content of the 5 voices. Understanding this voice can really help us become better leaders. Is that correct? So what are some of these practical ways that we can implement this?
Think of it this way: it's like how many plants people are planting right now. Like there's people, in their gardens. How many plants are there? And every plant needs different water, right? And so a cactus doesn't need as much water as a ficus. So the idea is the same with people. Is there's 5 general human types, plant types, and there's 16 different variations of humans. So if you understand the dynamic of that and go, okay, there's 5, well, there's a nurturer, there's a creative, there's a guardian, a connector, and a pioneer. And the nurturer is the quietest voice, and the pioneer is the loudest voice. So if you understand each one of these personalities have like a plant card, it tells you how much water it needs, how much sunlight it needs. So if you'll understand it and use it, then you can have a lot of influence. And so what we've done is we've just made it simple enough for people to understand that what the plant cards are. So for instance, the nurturers make up 43% of the population. 70% are female. So if you understand that dynamic in personality, that's a majority of personality. Well, but they're the quietest. They're the champions of people. They are always serving and helping others. So they show up as nurses and teachers, and they show up in lots of different environments that allow them to nurture other people more than the spotlight being on them. So that's 43%. Then if you understand the middle group is the guardians, they make up 30% of the population, and 70% of them are male, and they're black and white. They like structure, they like process. They're accountants, they're soldiers, they're police, fire. And so those 2 combinations between the nurturers and the guardians make up 73% of the population. Now, why am I nerding out on this? Is because if you understand that 73% of the population are present oriented, that means that 27% are future oriented. There's a lot of conflict that happens between present and future orientation. So if you're a political leader, you better know who you're talking to. If you're writing a book, you need to know who's the book to. Are nurturers going to read this book? Are guardians going to read this book? Or are the future-oriented voices going to read this book? So just the sheer fact of understanding the demographics of personality can change the entire construct of your marketing plan or your strategy for writing.
Well, first off, I love the way that you simplified even that explanation for myself and for our listeners today, relating it back to plants, just like something that everybody can understand and really grasp. So I can see exactly what you've been talking about and what you do in your book. It's right on point. So, one thing I'm curious about, is part of your framework in your book also identifying your own voice? Perhaps is there a test or an assessment where we can figure out which one we actually have? Because I'm like, what do I have, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, who are you? So, because here's the part. We were like, I have 3 kids. We knew early on that personalities are different with kids. But then over time, their environment, they adapt and they get shaped by that. But wouldn't you like to know who you are? Wouldn't you like to know what your actual voice is? So you can go to the 5 voices, the number 5, 5voices.com. It's free. You can take an assessment and you can find out what your voice is. And so the beauty of that is once you know who you are, you can start to lead yourself. You can start to understand your stress behavior. You can start to understand tendencies. I'm a connector. Connectors are the second loudest voice. Connectors are like bumblebees. They're pollinating things all the time. They're moving around. They like to have lots of irons on the fire. They like to spin a lot of plates. So if you know that, but if you understand what happens under stress, then and how a connector gets closed by certain dynamics, by relational frustrations or issues with other people, then it'll shut them down. So if you understand that, then you can lead yourself. So in the same way, if you want to find out who you are, go to fivevoices.com. It'll give you a thorough overview of your voice, and realize that as you take that test, we are all of the voices. I'm actually all of them because I'm a human, I'm adaptable. I've learned how to be a nurturer at times. I've learned how to be a guardian. I've learned how to be a creative or a pioneer, but I really am a connector. I might play a pioneer on TV, but I'm really a connector at the core.
Well, there you go, everybody. We're going to put that link right in the description box of this podcast. So you can go ahead and click that right now, or wait till the end of the podcast and then click it and find out your own voice right there. It's really cool to know that you can have even multiple voices too, though, Jeremie. And congrats on having, all five. I wonder if that's almost like do you offer like rewards, right? I feel like we should have like little stickers, each voice that we develop in our lives. Maybe that's silly to say, but it's something to be proud of, I think.
Well, what it is actually, if you change the metaphor, I'm going to change it on you. If you think of it as a language, you can think of it as a plant, you can think of it as a language. Then I need to learn other languages of other people. So know others to lead others. So our oldest daughter is a creative. My son's a guardian. My youngest is a nurturer. But they're foundational voices. But my daughter is really a nurturer connector. My son's a guardian pioneer. There's other voices that play really close to them. But my wife didn't realize that she was actually missing my oldest daughter, and I was missing my son because we're nemesis voices. I'm a connector, my son's a guardian. My wife is a guardian, my daughter's a creative. Those are opposites. So once you know yourself, then you begin the journey of knowing other people. And when you know other people, it's like speaking another language. I lived in Russia for a few years, or in the early 90s, and I learned Russian. So if I would go to a Russian and, меня зовут Jeremie, and I'd speak my name and like, ты говоришь по-русски, да? Ты понимаешь? And if someone spoke Russian, then they're immediately like, they lean in because you're speaking their language. The same is true with personality. If you can speak the language of the other person, you can develop that person better than forcing them to speak your language. It's like do you speak English? And raising your voice to try to get them to think that raising your voice will help them interpret you better. Versus if you learn to speak their language, your chances of impact goes way up.
Understood. That's another great comparison. And, again, amazing that you're able to relate it in so many different aspects, something that all of our listeners today should implement in their own writing as well. But yeah, I like that idea of adapting different languages, because that makes a lot of sense. You don't want to just scream at them saying, do you know English? It's more so you need to learn their style and their communication. Fun fact, actually, that you're learning Russian. I have my boyfriend's mother is also Russian, so I've been trying to pick up on some phrases here and there, but I know what it's like to kind of adapt and learn. And, so far all I know is like certain food names, but I see what you mean by that. So branching off of that, I think I already know the answer to this, but how exactly can mastering these 5 voices help to multiply your healthy leadership throughout your organization? I mean, I can see how it would relate to the writing world and everything, but explain a little bit more. I'm sure there's so many different benefits I'm not even thinking about.
Well, so my next book, actually, I just finished it. I just sent it to Wiley. My next book's called The Voice-Driven Leader. And the idea is if you know your voice, then if you know the persons you're leading, and if you're leading multiple people on a team or an organization, there's stages that they go through. There's the foundation stage where they're just observing you and they're learning their job. There's the immersion stage, is when they start to actually jump into their work and they get overwhelmed and they can go underwater pretty quickly. Then there's the empowerment stage, when they start becoming consciously competent at their work. And then there's the multiplication stage. So if I'm a connector as the leader, that means I already have a tendency, I have a hard time slowing down to develop people, because I just want to go. Well, a guardian needs very specific detail. What's my job? What's my role? Do I have everything I need? Can you give me details and train me and show me? I have a harder time with that. Connector to another pioneer, pretty easy. Just send them off and let them go. A connector to another connector, we might get distracted because we'll get too excited about stuff along the way. So the point is, if you know yourself and if you know those you lead, then you can know their tendencies and you can understand their predictive leadership behavior. You can understand what happens to them under stress, and you can actually mitigate it by just getting in front of it and explaining, hey, this is going to happen. You're going to fall in this pit of despair. We're going to keep you from it. And then you help them move to the empowerment stage. So it's a real functional, practical book. It's called The Voice-Driven Leader. It comes out in October. It's a best field guide for actually how do you lead people.
Hey, well, I'm glad that this segued right into that book, because that is something I was going to bring up in this podcast too. Everybody listening, there's more content out there for you to check out. And this is going to be one of them in October, just more insights on the field. I'm wondering, do you want to share a little bit more about that and anything else we could be looking forward to in this upcoming release?
Yeah, I mean, it really comes down to you. If you're listening to this, if you're leading people. So if you're on here and you actually lead a team, then most people don't take the time to actually understand where people are. And so they force people to their voice. Hey, look, here, I'm the leader. This is what I do. If you don't like it, you can leave. And it's like, well, how's that working for you? So the idea is actually, if you'll take the time to know other people and then watch them and help them get to the point of they're insecure and they know they're insecure. But if you tell them this is what's going to happen, but then if you give them time, if you give them encouragement, if you give them vision, and then we talk in the book, how do you specifically do formal and informal time? How do you give them long-term and short-term vision? How do you get them to the point where they really, really are a productive part of the organization? So that's what the Voice-Driven Leader is all about.
Well, thank you so much for that. And to everybody listening today, make sure to mark your calendars and check it out when it comes out in only a couple months. I mean, October is coming up sooner than we would think. I would love to transition it more and talk about the writing process a little bit. We talked about why you wanted to write the 5 voices and also the idea of simplifying your message for the audience. I understand you also co-authored your book a little bit. I'm wondering if you want to chat about what that process is like, because for everyone listening today, that's a whole other element of the writing.
It's actually hard because you have 2 voices. In our case, I mainly write the books. So I write them myself. I don't have a ghostwriter. And then what happens is Steve Cochran, who's my founding partner, we kind of create the ideas together. And then I just take the ideas. And then what I do is I have a system. I just use Google Docs and I literally create the template, the idea. Then I start forming the sections. Then I start forming the flow. And now I'm using and leveraging AI. We have our own AI engine for the 5 voices. So we created our own API, and which means we basically have our own GPT, our own chatbot. So it has all of our books already immersed in it, but it's specific to us and we've trained it on how we want it. So what that does is it allows me to process with AI of okay, I'm looking, here's the source. I'm trying to do this. This is what I'm thinking. Can you find me the sources? So it's just like a fast Google. Can you find me the sources on this to pull into here? So it's helping. It's almost like a helper as I'm writing the book. And then I've got that going on. And then I give it to Steve. And the way I do it is all right, here you go. I'm giving the flow. Give me your line of thought. Steve's adding his edits, his feedback, his questions. But we trained we have another book that we wrote a couple of years ago called The Communication Code. And in it, I basically talk about there's 5 ways to communicate. I have expectations to celebrate, I need care, clarify, collaborate, or critique. So I give him these code words and it helps me. And I go, hey, dude, I need collaboration here. Or if you don't understand, I need you to clarify. And then along the way, he's celebrating. And then care, he's like, hey, are you good? I know you're busy. I appreciate all the things you're doing. You're killing it. So he's checking in with me and he lives in London. And so we're just kind of back and forth on Zoom or on the Google Doc. But the language has been helpful because we mitigated any drama that way. So if I say, hey, I need you to, if he goes, am I okay to collaborate? I'm like, absolutely. Or I'll go, well, before you do, clarify. Let's make sure that you're asking the right questions. Because if you collaborate on the thing that I'm not saying, that won't be helpful. So we've got it down like a science, and only a couple little tiffs in there. But for the most part, we do a really good job. But it allows me to have free reign. I don't know how, I've not seen it work where both people are mutually sharing, because what we tried to do is I tried to eliminate, well, I, parentheses, Steve, or I, parentheses, Jeremy, because it's not reader friendly.
No.
So we took all that stuff out and we just said we found that. And so then that makes it super easy. We're not trying to take territory in the book. We're just simply focused on what's it like to be on the other side of us and how would it make this great for a reader.
I like that tip a lot. There's a lot of butting heads, I'm sure, when it comes to collaborating, but it seems like you have an amazing system worked out where you go back and forth, and just the element also of like putting the reader first, the content first. It doesn't matter if you thought this or if he thought this, the we aspect. I love that a lot. That's a great tip for everyone listening today, is focusing on the we.
One other thing I'd say to you too is I used to run the Catalyst conferences and the Leader Cast, and I would have 10, 20 books sent to me each month because I'd have all these authors who wanted to be on our stages. And one thing I'd tell people is if you're going to write a book, it needs to be unbelievably original in this day and age. Because if you have people who are constantly saying if you're a leader, you need to look inside first. And I'm like, yeah, that's been said 20 million times. Or you need to make sure that people know that you're for them. And like, yeah, there's things like that are this jargon, as you mentioned earlier. Mm-hmm. So an example would be, as you're thinking about it, as we were explaining it, we decided we're going to go after the languages in this version of the voice-driven leader. So the voice-driven leader, voice equals language, got it. So we made a Paris Cafe principle. And that's a whole thing that we just created. I created out of thin air, but it's unique, it's sticky. And the whole idea is if you go to France and you try to speak English, they'll roll their eyes at you and you probably won't get exactly what you want. But if you try to speak French in a nice way and they know that you're trying, they're going to probably treat you differently than if you just said, coffee, black, no sugar, if you scream at them, right? So it's the same idea. So we created that whole idea of leadership is a language. If you understand the language of the other person, and then you attempt to try their language, they're going to respect you for that more so than if you try to force them to your language. So we just call it the Paris Cafe principle. And that made it a unique, no one's talked about the Paris Cafe principle, but now we've created something out of thin air. So as you're writing, if you're listening to this, as you're writing, I'd challenge you on everything. I'd take your topics of your titles, put them into AI and go, give me a better theme. Give me something that's punchy, spicy, sticky, something, and just make it memorable, because there's a lot of wasted words and a lot of wasted books.
Well, first off, I absolutely love that too. Keep it sticky. It makes me think of just syrup and pancakes or something, something you're always going to remember. You have to you can't even wash your hands of it, right? It's something that you're going to hold on to, and that's what makes your book memorable, keeps readers coming back. One thing that popped into my mind, and it's not exactly about the writing process now, but that whole Paris Cafe metaphor there. I've traveled a lot. I've been to many places too, and I don't really speak the languages, of course. So there's an element to me of when I try to pronounce the words, there's a fear holding me back a little bit. I'm wondering, do you counter that with any of your, I guess you call it the readers or your clients, fear of trying out a new voice?
So we've actually created the content. So here's another interesting thing about what we've done. For us, it's not about selling books as much. We'll sell books. We want to sell books, but it's what we do with the content. So we actually have badges and certifications. So we're leveraging the content to go deeper and take people on a journey. So it's okay, you read the book, great. Now, if you want to become proficient in the voices, you can take a 2.5 hour badge. If you go fast, it's an hour and a half. But you can take a course to become proficient in the 5 voices. So you can really learn it. If you want to master it and teach it to other people, you can get certified in it. So that's something to consider as you're writing. What's the journey? You know, I often say, like, content is alive. Content is an idea. It's a concept. And when the concept becomes organized, it becomes content. And then content starts to flow. It wants to get out. It wants to be something. So the question, though, is like, does it need to be a book? Does it need to be a course? Does it need to be a workbook? Does it need to be a video series? What does it want to be, and what's the outlet for it? So in our cases, we'll like sometimes capture the concept into the content of a book, but then from there, we don't finish with it. Like it wants to be more. We have an example. We have some content that some of our most loved content called the 5 Gears. And the 5 Gears is a sign language, but we haven't done anything with it. So it's been like pestering me on the shoulder. It's like, hey, what about me? Hey, what about me? But the 5 Gears, but we realized, like, the way that we were about to go out with it years ago, it wouldn't have been the right frame. So we're repackaging it now, and we're going to make it a time management system. And it's the future, but it's like still a year and a half away from taking old content and repurposing it. So it's not just a book. Like, books are just one format of what content wants to be. And you got to play it out. Some content shouldn't even be a book, to be honest. You shouldn't write it. You should come up with something more memorable or original. But then if you do have something that's so good and you're frustrated that your book sales haven't done what it want, well, maybe it's wanting to be something else. Maybe it's wanting to be a YouTube series. Maybe it's wanting to be a product. So just thinking about it differently is kind of how I look at things.
Got it. Well, I think that's a great topic to get into, because a lot of authors today, like, they have an idea, but you're right. Think about it. Maybe it doesn't have to be a book. Maybe it can be, a course or a video or everything. I mean, here at Authors on Mission, I help a lot of clients who, when they want to get their message out, so we can make their book and we structure it purposely so that content can be drawn for those additional platforms. It's a great way to spread your reach.
Yeah, and because even when you're writing, again, a book is one format. But like, I believe in power books. Power books are short, punchy, Amazon type books. Get it out. The problem with like publishers are oftentimes is they force you to a price point. So if you have a $20, $30 book, then that's going to be 60,000 words. If you have a $25 book, that's going to be 40,000+ words, 45,000. So they're forcing you. Well, in our case, I go, well, yeah, I think our books are meaty, and I try to make it meaty even in the last 3 chapters, even though most people won't read those. Most people are going to read the hook of the book. They're going to read through chapter 4 or 5. And if they're not hooked, then they're out. And so my point would be, making them a short power book could be then like, people are like, oh my goodness, that's so good. Well, that becomes a course, and that becomes a certification, or that becomes a YouTube series, or it becomes a mastermind, or it becomes like, there's 12, 15 different things that content could become. So it's thinking bigger than just like, I'm going to have a book. Because I think the misnomer, I'll never forget, my first book became a bestseller. It was Making Your Leadership Come Alive. Leadership is Dead. And it was like my first book. I was Wall Street Journal bestseller. And it was like my book about the mafia in Russia and leadership and all these stories. And it really hit. People really loved it. But what I find is a lot of people will write a book and their expectations of that book are so high. And I'll never forget when we did do the 5 Gears, I took all my kids. This was my second book. And we took our kids, we went to Barnes & Noble. It was on the shelf at Barnes & Noble. And we got there and I'm like, okay, guys, ta-da, look, check it out. Cool. And that lasted like 25 seconds. And then I got a picture with me holding the book 12 different ways. I got my wife with a picture of me, got my kids each holding the book. That was all done in probably 4.5, 5 minutes. So then I signed all the books, left them there. It took another couple of minutes. 10 minutes in, we're like, okay, well, go to lunch, right? And it was almost like there's something magical. It's enthralling when you see your name on a book in Barnes and Noble or wherever. But the problem with it is there's so much expectation around what a book will do. Well, in today's world, it's less and less and less and less. Just the book. You have to be so much more creative and have so much more ingenuity for it to really, really scale. So that's the aha that sometimes I want to let people know, like there's a different way. And so don't think a book is your only thing. Think it as one of the things.
Understood. Yeah, no, that's an amazing tip. And I do love the stories of, your first release, because that's really something that all authors are dreaming about right now, right? Like we're writing our books and we're typing and we're just sitting there with a thought bubble over our head, waiting to see that moment on the shelves. And you really just put it in such a blunt way. Like it took 45 seconds and then we left the store. Like I'm just really funny there. But it's true. So that's why you need to keep breathing life into your books, like beyond just release date. So really amazing tips there.
Yep.
So I guess I'm curious to know also, I mean, now that you've had many books out there, you've been doing this for a while, what kind of feedback have you gotten from your readers and your listeners? Have you heard a lot of stories of them transforming their own lives and careers based on these tips?
Yeah. So, you think about it, like take the 5 voices. The 5 voices every single day. I mean, we're getting people, I'm going to see it pulling up my Slack channel. So we get wins. We have a wins channel, and it shows right here that we just sold, just at 11:14, we sold to Danny a one-time 5 voices assessment to go deeper. We sold a monthly license to some other content so we've sold, since we've been on here, 3 different things that have happened on something that I wrote in 2015. So repurposing content and recreating and packaging it for people, and then creating a system where people can try it and use it. That's the goal. We have one of my books called the Peace Index, and the Peace Index I wrote during COVID. Wiley asked me to do it. It was really, really powerful book, but we're repurposing it and we're tying it to the blue zones and for health. And we're creating a system. We found that our Peace Index is the blue zone. And so we figured out that we've got an opportunity for health to tie that into for people who want to grow or want to become more healthy in their life. Then the Peace Index is a way to do it. So my point is our content is always there, and we're trying to figure out, should we do something with it, and when should we do it? We just had here in about 30 minutes, I'm meeting with one of my developers, and we just decided to punt and wait on some content we were working on because we felt like other content needed to move up. And some of our work in the 5 voices for families and some of our work, 5 voices for sales, needed to get prioritized versus this other content that we had. So it's like always, here's what I'm saying. You are a steward of your content. If you are only viewing it from a book and if it's selling or not selling, you're missing it. Their book may not have hit, but there might have been one chapter in that book that was the creme de la creme. It was like what everyone loved. Pull it out and make it something else. Create something from it, because the book didn't hit, but that concept does. So it's like, where is the life in the content and the concepts you have? And then you're a steward of it. So now think about how you can maximize your influence with content.
Well, there you go. Thank you so much for sharing all of that. I think this whole podcast system is just full of insights and, really down to earth strategies that anybody listening can implement right after they're done listening today. That being said, I'm wondering, do you happen to have any other last bits of advice or words of wisdom for all the aspiring authors out there listening today?
Yeah, I think it is directly tied to how alive you are as a person. I find that when I'm in a season or a place where I'm like, I'm just not feeling it or I'm not there, my belief is low, then my book writing is going to be low. And so I have to do a lot of work personally to get myself ready for writing. And then once I'm in it, like I just finished sending out the book last Friday, I literally sent off the dedications and acknowledgments and all those pieces this morning, but I'm also writing another book because I'm in the writing zone. And so when you're in the zone, I want to stay in it for a little bit. So I'm trying to finish another short power book that I'm writing with my son right now. So but I feel alive to be able to do it. So I would just encourage you, if you're not alive in your writing, go do some self-work, mindset, belief work, and then come back to your writing.
I love that, right? Just like wake up, people, stay alive, be mindful of what you're doing, what you're writing. And that's what really would drive quality work. I agree wholeheartedly. That's perfect advice. So now also you mentioned, you have some links, you have the courses for everyone to take. I wonder if you want to just let us know this one last time so that we can get in touch with you and connect.
Yeah. So if you want to see my speaking site, it's jeremiekubicek.com, and how I try to weave in the books. So jeremiekubicek.com. Danielle, you can put that on the notes. It's hard to spell, but you'll
no worries. We'll have it right there.
You got it. The easier one is fivevoices.com. And so again, if you want to take it, or if you want to have anyone in your family take it, or if you want to have coworkers take it, just send them the link, fivevoices.com. It's free. They can go to find out their personality and wiring. There are also deeper ways. If you want to learn and go deeper, then you gladly can do that too. We also just launched our 5 Voices AI. So the ability to take artificial intelligence and understand and speak to people based on it is really fascinating. So you can actually ask people questions. So if my wife's a guardian, how's she going to respond to this or that?
That's really fascinating. You developed a whole AI system on it. That's really remarkable. I'm very surprised by that. Okay. Can you share just a little bit more about that? I'm very curious. How did you implement that?
Yeah, so we've basically created our own app. So we have the 5 Voices app. So if you wanted to add an app, then you can have other people take the assessment, and then it can have everyone linked. And You can see there's my son, my daughter, and it gives you insights on them and how to communicate with them. Then in the bottom right corner, it's just AI. It's a relational coach. And like, hey, I'm having an issue with this coworker. And it'll say, well, remember, he's a guardian, you're a connector, you're nemesis voices. You might want to, and it gives you tips specifically on those, real time. So it's really fascinating.
That's really cool. I'm going to download that myself now. I think, it's like just hands-on implementation of your work. So I think that's really inspiring, honestly. Anybody listening today should definitely, try to see how that implements in your own writing too. That's really cool, Jeremie. Thank you for that.
Yeah, and you can see all that it'll have the details of the app and of the test and assessment on fivevoices.com.
Well, perfect. There we go. Again, everybody, check out those links as soon as we're done today. And, Jeremie, thank you so much for joining us on our show. Really amazing insights with the 5 Voices and with the writing process and publishing and everything in general. So it's been a pleasure. Thanks for coming on.
Great to meet you. Thank you all. Wish you all the best.
Awesome. And to everybody listening today, just remember, knowing yourself is the key to leading and influencing others with greater impact. Identify your leadership voice, surround yourself with other voices, and watch your leadership and communication rise to new levels using Jeremie's work and his app and everything else. And stay tuned for that new release later this year. Until next time, keep writing your own success story and leading with purpose. Together, we can change the world by helping people understand each other and communicate effectively. Thank you for joining us on today's episode of Authors on Mission podcast. Have a good one. This is Danielle Hutchinson reminding you that somewhere, someone needs the book that only you can write. Visit authorsonmission.com to start your legacy. Until next time, keep leading, keep inspiring, and keep thinking in chapters. Have a great day.